squashed pizza or pizza that just wasn't right? The Noid did it. But at Domino's Pizza, we avoid the Noid. So when you want hot, delicious quality pizza delivered in less than 30 minutes, Domino's Pizza delivers. One call does it all.
Kreeepers. What's up, you crazy creeps? It is Clearski. I'm back. How the heck are you guys? So I'm standing in front of this Domino's Pizza here, a brand new one off of Powell Boulevard in Gresham, which was once a Pizza Hut. And it got me thinking, well, I started going down the rabbit hole of information, and from being from Portland, I've always been fond of the connections between things, and also things, you know, more specifically from Portland, which led me down the rabbit hole quite some way, and brings me to a story that featured a Domino's Pizza character by the name of the Noid. Back in 1986, Vinton Studios first previewed him on a commercial that they ran for a promotional ad for the 30 minutes or less campaign. And the Noid was a little like mischievous character that would do anything it took to basically, you know, get your pizza not delivered in 30 minutes or less. So they had the little claymation character, and in fact the term claymation would be later copyrighted and trademarked by Vinton himself. But the character, the Noid, just recently made a comeback in the newer commercials. So I thought I would start here at this new Domino's located in Gresham. The company's been around for quite some time. But in fact, Mr. Vinton himself, already being famous for The Adventures of Mark Twain, that he actually won an Oscar for, had his studios right here in Portland, Oregon, up in Northwest, which we actually visited a couple times. We did the full vlog on Vinton. But years later, Domino's would approach him with an idea, and there was a group that Will created roughly 85, 86, called Group 243. And Group 243 consisted of a ton of artists, and Will, being one of them, was approached by the Domino's company because they kind of saw what Will did with the California Raisins. He was approached by, you know, Post, or whatever the cereal company was that featured the raisins, and also the actual California Raisins brand, actual raisins, you know, Sun-made raisins. Their sales took off tremendously. So Group 243 was created, and when they created Group 243, they had a couple different renditions of the Noid, and they left it up to Vinton's company, which was here in Portland, like I said, up in Northwest, to go ahead and pick out which ones they wanted. So he hired a couple guys that actually picked out, you know, the little claymation Noid, which you guys will probably remember. I'll do my best to insert some pictures. But yeah, for years, the Noid would be the guy that you would avoid. That was their whole, you know, marketing campaign. And in fact, I did you guys one better and brought one of the old Noid toys that they offered here at Domino's years ago. I think this one's stamped 85. No, maybe 89 or so, because the first appearance was in 86. What leads me to kind of a really really dark story that I don't know if it really hurt their campaign, but for years they did not feature the Noid, after being even filmed and associated with video games. The Nintendo system was really huge back then, and there was a ton of, like I just showed you guys, toys and different items like lunch boxes and all kinds of merch. But in the early morning hours at approximately 11 a.m. in Atlanta, Georgia, and I believe it was in January. Yeah, I'll have to, yeah, January 30th, 1989 is when the Pizza Hut in Atlanta, Georgia was approached by a gentleman with a .357 caliber pistol, and he actually went inside the Pizza Hut, or I'm sorry, this was a Pizza Hut before, that's why I had it on my mind. He went inside the Domino's with the loaded .357 handgun and started making threats. And the employees at the time weren't sure if they could, really take this guy serious. He just seemed kind of wacky, was really talking to himself, and was just really frantic about how he went about approaching this Domino's. So with pistol in hand, just to show that he meant business, he actually fired a shot into the ground of the Domino's store itself. And the man I'm talking to you guys about is Kenneth Noid. That's right, Noid. So the same name as the Domino's Pizza Noid. And in fact, later they found out that Kenneth, the reasoning behind the so-called robbery, there was actually more to it. And the story is that he believed that when Domino's first started running the ads in '86, that this detective, Tom S. McGowan, was stalking him. And at one point he said that he actually thought that he was actually going into his apartment and snooping around. So this guy was kind of bonkers. So during the robbery, he actually ended up taking hostages. He took 3 hostages, and over a 5-hour period, he had them call in to the main office and insist that the Domino's Corporation stop these commercials, and he insisted that they were about him. So his demands were not met by the corporation, but when the police were involved, the police basically offered him, kind of like a plea kind of deal, and to release these hostages. Kenneth Noid had other plans. He wanted a stretch white limousine for him to be picked up in. He demanded $100,000 in cash. He demanded a certain novel, which was later on, I just kind of read briefly about it. It's kind of Illuminati style plot called The Widow's Son. So he demanded all 3 of these items, and the police said, look, we'll bring you the book and release some of the hostages. So during the time of them kind of talking with him and trying to figure out what exactly was going on, the police said they could not figure out, what this guy was on, if he was just genuinely crazy, what his deal was. He wasn't straightforward with his demands, other than those 3 items. So when the police finally got to him, it had been 5-6 hours, and in that time, he demanded that 2 employees out of the 5 hostages make him 2 specialty pizzas, pepperoni, sausage, and I think it was pepperoni, sausage, olives, and mushrooms, some sort of specialty like combination pie, 2 of them, plus a salad. And after the employees frantically, figured out who was gonna be the one to do it, they presented him with the pizzas first. And apparently during the whole ordeal, they noticed that he had placed the pistol on his lap. So the employees, kind of being smarter than the Noid guy,
they were able to duck out while he ate the pizzas with his gun on his lap. Another really weird piece to this story is, after the hostages were released and the police apprehended Noid, he confessed to having these, elusive dreams and different beliefs as to why that he thought they used his image and who he was as the Noid character. And the police officer that was questioned by the media at the time actually dubbed him as being paranoid. And unfortunately, he never did any jail time. He was committed 2 months at a mental hospital and basically pleaded insanity. And you know, the antics of that day kind of really verified that he was crazy, and saying that he thought he was the Noid kind of sealed the deal. And, you know, saying that the detective had been following him and coming into his apartment, just, you know, delusional. And it haunted him for years. It actually bothered him so much that he actually ended up committing suicide. And just a really weird, dark piece of history. But the Noid's back. They actually started bringing him back into the commercials this year. And, you know, kind of started all here in Portland. Kind of a tragic ending to somebody's life. All the years of, you know, maybe guilt got the best of him. Or maybe he was just fully paranoid. But that's going to do it for today. I love you guys very much for always creeping with. Make sure you guys ring that bell. That way when I creep, you guys will be the first to creep. But definitely just a kind of an interesting, kind of a dark backstory of the Noid. And he was always one of my favorite designs by Vinton. I always really liked all of his work growing up. But when I heard this story, I had to tell it. It interests me and was just so weird. But I love you guys very much for always tuning in and creeping with. But that's going to do it from the soon-to-be Domino's here in Gresham, Oregon. Make sure you guys tune in. We got a lot of good creeps coming. And just make sure if you do order Domino's, you avoid the Noid. Love you guys. Creeper out for now. Peace.